Hello everyone. In this video, I shall be discussing the poem A Tiger in the Zoo by Leslie Norris. The explanation and the poetic devices shall be discussed in this video. A brief introduction to the poem. The poem explains the agony means pain, the agony and helplessness of a caged tiger that lives in a zoo. Here, the poet is presenting a contrast between a tiger's life in the jungle and his life in a cage. So, this is a poem of contrast between a tiger's life in the jungle and his life in a cage. Before we go to the explanation, let's just give the poem a quick read. A tiger in the zoo. He stalks in his vivid stripes, the few steps of his cage, on pads of velvet quiet, in his quiet rage. He should be lurking in shadow, sliding through long grass, near the waterhole where plump deer pass. He should be snarling around houses at the jungle's edge, baring his white fangs, his claws terrorizing the village. But he's locked in a concrete cell, his strength behind the bars, stalking the length of his cage, ignoring visitors. He hears the last voice at night, the patrolling cars, and stares with his brilliant eyes at the brilliant stars. Leslie Norris. Coming to the first stanza. He stalks in his vivid stripes. The word stalks means follows, to follow something, and vivid means brightly colored. So this is what is stalking. The tiger is moving from left to right. He is following his own steps. And the few steps of his cage he is stalking. This is what is stalking. You can see he is repeating his steps. He is following his steps. And why does he do so? Because he has a very limited area to walk in. Right? So here the poet is trying to say that the tiger that is confined in the zoo moves around in the cage under his bright colored skin. Under his bright colored skin means it's just a description of the tiger that he has brightly colored stripes on his body and he is just following his own steps in the cage, following few steps. Few steps means that the area that he is walking in is extremely limited. The tiger can take only a few steps because the cage is small and it is not easy to move in it. On pads of velvet quiet. On pads of velvet quiet means that nobody can hear his footsteps because he has padded feet with skin which is soft like velvet. Nobody can hear him, and we all know that animals have padded paws, right? And that is what the poet is trying to say here. In his quiet rage means anger. Poet here says that he is angry but quiet because he cannot express himself. So the tiger here is trying to control his anger by quietly walking in the limited area of his cage. And why rage? Why is he angry? Because he is not free. He should be lurking in shadow, sliding through long grass near the waterhole where plump deer pass. So what is lurking? Lurking means to be hidden as to wait for your prey. As you can see in the picture, the tiger here is hiding in waiting, and you must have seen in many videos about hunting animals, wild animals going on a hunt. So they hide themselves. That is called lurking, right? So the tiger here is lurking in the shadow in this picture. He should be lurking in the shadow, sliding through long grass near the waterhole where plump deer pass. What is plump deer? Plump means fat, healthy, and deer here, you all know what a deer is. And plump deer can also stand for generally a healthy prey that tiger can feed upon. So if this tiger was free, that is why the poet has used the word should. Right now he is caged. But what the poet wishes, he says that if this tiger was free, he would have hid himself behind the long grass near the water bodies. So water hole means the water bodies. The water bodies where all the animals in the forest go to have water. It could be a lake, it could be a pond, it could be a river. So near the water bodies, the tiger should be hiding himself so that he could easily catch a deer. So here deer means easily catch his prey in order to have it as its food. So this is what the tiger should be doing in the jungle. So the poet wants to say here that actual life of a tiger is to live in the jungle where he could catch his prey and eat it. But the tiger in the cage cannot do it, and that is what the poet wishes. And this is the contrast. What is he doing in the cage? He is just moving to and fro. He is following his own steps. But ideally in the jungle, he should be doing this hunting for his prey. Next, he should be snarling around houses at the jungle's edge, baring his white fangs, his claws, terrorizing the village. So this is snarling. Snarling means warning sounds made by animals. And if you see in the picture how his white fangs are visible, these are the fangs. How his white fangs are visible, and villagers get scared. The people get scared. The poet says that if the tiger was free, so this is the second thing, it is the second behavior pattern that the poet expects the tiger should be doing when he is free in the forest. So the poet says if the tiger would have been free, he would have snarled around the houses located at the outskirts of the forest. So when a forest ends, there is inhabitation, which is usually a village, and people are really scared. So he would scare people by baring. Baring means showing, exposing. Baring means showing, exposing his sharp teeth and claws. And this would create fear among the people living in the villages. So first is that the poet, how has he contrasted his life in the cage to what he should be doing in the forest. Number one, he should be hunting in hiding. And number two, he should be snarling around houses at the jungle's edge. So he should be scaring people. So these are the two things that the poet expects the tiger to be doing when he is free, living in the forest, scaring people and hunting animals. So here there is an element of irony to it. Irony means exactly the opposite of what it is supposed to be. So this stanza tells us the irony of the tiger's life, right? In the cage, what his life is, he cannot show his strength. And here in the forest, what his life actually should be. Terrorizing people. And what is actually happening to the tiger in the cage, that he is kind of scared of people because, people have captured him. So this is the irony of tiger's life in the cage and in the jungle that the poet is trying to convey to us. Coming to the next stanza. But he is locked in a concrete cell. So the previous two stanzas talked about what the poet says that he should be doing in the jungle. But now the poet has come to the reality of the tiger in the cage. But he is locked in a concrete cell, his strength behind bars, stalking the length of his cage, ignoring visitors. So the tiger is confined in a strong cell made up of strong building material. That is concrete. Strong building material, concrete, and in common terms we say that is the cement. As the tiger is behind bars, his ferociousness, his strength, he is such a strong, a powerful animal, but he is not able to show this strength. His strength behind bars. His strength is caged. He cannot show his strength. He is such a strong and a powerful animal. Still, he is not able to show how strong he is because he is behind bars. And the poet here repeats, stalking the length of his cage. Again, the poet says that he just stalks, follows the length of his cage, his own footsteps, because the cage is very small and the tiger has a very limited area to walk in. Ignoring visitors. He never tries to terrorize the visitors now because his number one, his power is restricted by the cage. So he within himself somewhere knows that it's no use trying to scare anybody, because he actually cannot use his strength to free himself. So he pays no attention to them. He's ignoring them, maybe because there are too many visitors coming to look at him every day that they don't matter to him at all. Ignoring visitors here also could have the connotations that he somewhere realizes that he has been caught by human beings, and his pitiful state is because of the human beings, and he no more wants to be an entertainer for them, because he feels that human beings are devoid of any feelings, they don't have any feelings, and they cannot do anything to free him because they are the ones responsible to put him behind the bars. And this is the reason why he is ignoring the visitors. He hears the last voice at night, the patrolling cars, and stares with his brilliant eyes at the brilliant stars. So what he does at night, the tiger hears the sound of the patrolling cars. Patrolling cars are cars with guards which are used to guard all night in the zoo, that nothing happens to the animals and everything is safe. The safety of the animals and overall guarding the zoo. So these are patrolling cars. In the night, the tiger hears the sounds of these cars, and that is the last voice that he hears at night is the patrolling cars. The sound of the patrolling cars is the sound that he hears last at night. He then stares at the shining stars with shining eyes, shining brilliant, at the shining stars with shining eyes. Here the poet has repeated the word brilliant. The poet wants to say that the tiger is sad as he is confined to the cage. He cannot do anything, and therefore, just to divert his attention, he is looking at the stars. And why are his eyes shining? There could be many interpretation of the word brilliant here. One could be that he is so sad that there are tears in his eyes and the eyes have become glassy and they are reflecting light. So here brilliant shows the sadness of the tiger. Secondly, it could be that it could be literal that when he is looking at the stars, the reflection of the stars falls in his eyes and the stars are shining and his eyes appear to be shining. Or it could have a positive connotation also. He is looking at the stars, the shining stars, with hope, with longing that one day he will also be free like the stars. So this could be the shine, the brilliance of hope. This is a positive connotation attached to the words brilliant. That is the shine of hope in his eyes that one day he would also be free like the stars shining freely in the sky. So these are the two meanings of the word brilliant here. What is the message now the poet wishes to convey through this poem? It's quite an easy and a very simple message here, that just like humans, animals too long for freedom and they don't like to be caged, right? Would you like to be caged? No. It's just that we might not understand this need of animals, but they also long for freedom. And it is cruel to keep wild animals in small enclosures of the zoo away from their natural habitat. They feel angry, helpless, and unhappy, like this tiger in the cage, and they long for their life and environment in the forest. So it is cruel to cage animals. Coming to the discussion of the literary devices used in the poem, he stalks in his vivid stripes the few steps of his cage on pads of velvet quiet in his quiet rage. Inversion is a device in which the poets change the order of the words in a sentence for emphasis or for rhyming effect, like here the poet has done for rhyme. He stalks in his vivid stripes the few steps of his cage. The correct order should be he stalks the few steps of his cage in his vivid stripes. Another example of inversion we have here, on pads of velvet quiet. It should be on pads of quiet velvet. Assonance, he stalks in his vivid stripes, that is repeated I in most of the words. But it is not alliteration. Alliteration is the beginning, and here a vowel is repeated anywhere between word, maybe once or twice, and it's a string of words in which that particular vowel has been repeated. Metaphor, pads of velvet. Tiger's paws or skin of the tiger's feet has been assumed to be velvet. In a metaphor, there is an assumption. One object is assumed to be the other. For example, you are the star of my eye, or you are the lion of the class. So one object assumed to be the other. Personification, where any non-human object is given a human ability, capability, adjective, or a pronoun. So here, pads of velvet quiet, the tiger's paws have been given the human ability to be quiet. Now paws cannot be quiet, right? So this is personification. Oxymoron is when in a phrase two contradictory words, not essentially opposites, but two words which usually don't agree with each other. Like here, quiet and rage. Rage, anger. Now how is anger quiet? Being angry and being quiet, they don't go very well together, because we relate anger with lot of noise. So these two words, quiet and rage, they are contradicting each other. They do not agree with each other. Therefore, this is an oxymoron. Transferred epithet, where there is a transfer, a shift of an adjective from one noun to the other. An adjective which is meant for one noun is used for the other noun. This is done just to create an interest for the readers. Velvet, quiet. Now here, who is quiet? His paws, velvety pads, velvety paws are not quiet. Who is quiet? The tiger is quiet. So the adjective quiet from the tiger has been shifted to his velvety pads, that is his paws. Therefore, this is transferred epithet. Similarly, quiet, rage. Here again, anger is not quiet. Who is quiet? The tiger is quiet. So here also the adjective quiet, which is meant for the tiger, has been shifted to rage, anger. Anger being said to be quiet. So there is a shift of adjective. Therefore, this is also transferred epithet. And finally, repetition, on pads of velvet quiet in his quiet rage. So the word quiet has been repeated to lay emphasis on the word quiet, that how it is unnatural for a tiger to be so quiet. So here the word quiet is extremely important, and it is showing the state of tiger's mind and his behavior, which is so very unnatural. That is why the poet has used the word quiet here. He should be lurking in shadow, sliding through long grass near the water hole where plump deer pass. So the device here, rhyme, grass pass, rhyming words, alliteration, plump deer pass, plump and pass, the repeated sound of P in the beginning. Should be lurking in shadow, should, shadow, repeated sound of sh in the beginning. Though it is a weak alliteration, but it will be counted as alliteration. Enjambment. Enjambment, what does enjambment mean? That one sentence is broken into lines, into different lines. When we read a stanza, we feel that it is just one sentence which has been broken into different lines, maybe for rhyming or to create emphasis. But what is important is here that at the end of every line there is no punctuation. So one sentence is broken here into 3 lines without punctuation, and the line continues to the next line without any punctuation marks. This is called enjambment. Next stanza, he should be snarling around houses at the jungle's edge, baring his white fangs, his claws terrorizing the village. Again, it is enjambment. He should be snarling around houses at the jungle's edge. So if you see here, the first 2 lines are actually making one sentence, and since there is no punctuation at the end of the first sentence, that makes it enjambment. Repetition, bearing his white fangs, his claws. Now actually there was no need. The poet could have just written bearing his white fangs and claws, but the poet has repeated his white fangs, his claws. So these are the distinctive features of a tiger which are distinct to him. That is why the poet has repeatedly used the word his, just to create an emphasis of what all tiger is capable of. He has such strong features, which are pretty dangerous, but he right now can't do anything. Onomatopoeia, that is sound words, words which give you the effect of sound, like thud, whoosh, flap, flip, splash. These are all sound words, most of them which don't have a meaning, but when you read them or hear these words, they produce a sound effect in your mind. This is called onomatopoeia. And here the word snarling is a sound word which produces a sound effect. Therefore, this is onomatopoeia. Next stanza, but he's locked in a concrete cell, his strength behind bars, stalking the length of his cage, ignoring visitors. Alliteration, concrete cell, behind bars. So if you see here, initial sound is repeated right in the beginning. So and k, the family of the sound is same. Behind bars, B has been repeated. Personification, this is a very important device in this stanza. Strength behind bars. So how is this personification? Now strength cannot be behind bars, so the strength has been personified by the poet, and the poet has given it the ability to be caged, to be behind the bars. Therefore, this is personification. The tiger's strength has been personified by being given the ability to be behind the bars. He hears the last voice at night, the patrolling cars, and stares with his brilliant eyes at the brilliant stars. Alliteration, he hears, though it's a weak alliteration, but we count this as alliteration. Again, there is enjambment, and stares with his brilliant eyes at the brilliant stars. So if you see these last 2 lines, they form actually one sentence divided into 2 lines, and in the end, if you see, there is no punctuation mark. Therefore, this is enjambment. Again, inversion, and stares with his brilliant eyes at the brilliant stars. So the correct order should be and stares at the brilliant stars with his brilliant eyes. So the poet has played a little bit with the order of the words in a sentence. This is called inversion. Repetition. Again, here repetition, as I have discussed previously, is an extremely important device here. The word brilliant has been repeated for emphasis, and it has 2 different connotations that I've already discussed previously. So this is repetition. Hoping that you liked the video. Meet you with my next video. Till then, keep watching, keep learning. Thank you.